This week's channeled message from the angels is giving us a beautiful vision of our future, both the near term, what we are likely to experience in our lifetimes, but also the longer term, where humanity is headed in the bigger picture. So, welcome back to my channel, you guys. And for those of you who are new here, my name is Ann Tucker. I am a trance channel. I channel from the angelic realm. And I do that by raising my awareness as high as I can go. And I go a little bit higher, I connect, and I bring those messages and healing through and share it here with you guys on YouTube every Friday. So, this week's message is meant to be an inspiration. They are inspiring us, helping us to really tune in to the bridge that they are creating toward this higher state of being that we are moving toward, right? They're painting a picture for us of what it's going to be like, of how we're going to experience it. Not only the transition, but once we reach that higher state of consciousness, how is it going to affect us? How are we going to feel? And explaining the whole process of knowing what that's going to be. So it's an amazing message. I hope you guys love it. And wait, if you haven't done it yet, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. So that would help me a lot. Thank you so much for doing it. I hope you guys enjoy the message. So, all right, if you guys are ready, I will dig in. All right, here's the message. They say, we are now supplying a picture in your mind of how things are forming, of where you are conforming to, the now treasured aspects of your coming to align. We wish to inspire yourselves to open the veil a bit, not much, enough to suffice to tell you where you are, to let you feel the divide yet to be overcome. You are inspired within the confines of an understanding that is formed by breathing within these times surrounding. You sense yourselves opening now and rising. There is within these times a bridging that beckons you on, lifting yourselves to what is known to us, a heavenly imposed surface. A new statement of yourselves, a new weight, a lightness, a sense of yourselves as aligned more fully. Completed in this understanding will be your own homecoming, where you are supplied and endowed with a perfection that is nearer than you know. You hold it within yourselves. It announces now its own potency and strength. We wish you to envision a time before now, before this time, when all was chaos and you were inspired. When all was chaos and you were apart from here, before you did arrive, there was a time when you felt this place on the horizon and wondered of it and of this time, and felt to the self it was far off, the never now, the time to arrive that is not yet come. The sense of yourself as inspired, as wanting, as wishing, as leaning toward, but not knowing. And in that time before you came here, you were surveying the circumstances of this place without knowing how it would be and become. You sensed yourself in alignment with this place, but did not know your time, could not fathom the distinction of how this place would be. And yet, here you are, thriving in your insistence that this is all you ever were, beings tied to this place, beings who harmonize with Earth. When in fact, this newly formed blessing is but an encounter on a journey that has many tides and breaks, many feelings and knowings, and this is but one of them. This time, this life, this journey, this earth, this realm, this becoming. We wish now to inspire yourselves to remember that time before coming. To sense where you are now is not much different. You stand at the peak of the horizon and watch it form before yourselves without knowing exactly where you are and where you are headed, but feeling the call of what is coming. You sense that you are on a journey to arrive, that it is inevitable. It is calling forward from now, and you are moving on to meet it. But there is yet the discovery to be had of what it will be like. We hold you now in this endeavor to inspire, to let you feel yourselves as solid as you are, as pleasant as these visions are to hold. Remember now who you are on this continent in this separation at this time. how you are alive, the sense of heartbeat, the endeavor to breathe, to be, in search of greater harmony, but always within what and who you are. And as you stretch farther, this longing, as you know it, creates the divide between where you are and where you're going. The sense of what you are disperses. The sense of knowing your own self individuated becomes lessened. You are stretched. From this vantage point where you are seeing it, we can only just describe the sensation of it. But in this new way of being, your sentiment towards one another changes. The feelings you have align towards the greater dignity of humanity. We would speak farther beyond this knowing into the next surmising of humanity, of understanding what you are as a collective, to feel the herald of the heavens tumble down to you, to let it draw forward your understanding in formation with one another's knowledge. The separation thus found so easily where you are is dispersed and pleasantly discarded, and you become one earthly sentient, one earth organism. A sense of who you are, embodied now in flesh and blood, but containing all of you inside. The sense of this compatriotship, of one another at your side. The sense of this always, not as an injury, not at all, not in the sense of loss of separation, but a loss of the potent forces of your own distinguishing loneliness. From this collective state of awareness, all things rise to the complexity of one mind and fall back down again for equal sharing and knowing. There has not, in the state on the horizon, been the forces to pull your tide farther. There has not yet been the cascade of events that would draw you there. This is yet coming. These instigations have already begun, but there is yet time unfolding, and the drawing onward has yet to come. For the collective of one mind, how is it felt? How is it molded? And we say for yourselves, to exist in the space of awareness that is shared becomes a gradual acceptance that all knowledge is available to the self, that all the self has experienced, the knowing of what you are, informs the collective, that you are seen deeply, you are known and felt, you are understanding one another in truth, for their purpose, for their originality, for their union with the whole. You see yourselves as cooperative, collaborative, communicative, as sharing space of equality, an equal cherishing of one another's purpose and potential. And the methods by which you communicate are different. There is within yourselves a knowledge of how thoughts are forming and the ability to communicate without words. There is within the self a rising of knowingness as you approach one another, a sense of what you are unfolding before you, and of they to whom you are speaking, the reception of this knowledge, and of you receiving what they are, full and intact. A collaborative gesture of knowing, a sensing, a feeling in the body, a having been, as though you are remembering what you've always known, a sense of this rising to the awareness, coming from somewhere in your depths that you cannot identify, a resurfacing, as though this was someone from your past, though you may not have known them. And this takes you far, this connection. The sense of what they are, the knowingness, provides between you a complexity of endeavor, in which the collaboration of your species, the collective, is endowed with more potential. The greater divide between the whole, the astounding measures now taken to create identity and separateness are dissolved. These nations which you hold dear and important become less so. They do not rise. They find their passage ineffectual and become an old instantiation of control to which you will no longer abide. You find in the self a way and method of finding your place in the world, a way of being of service to one another. A sense of yourself as part of a collective energy that works upon the earth to grow her potential. The earth, she will rise and fall and become more. And you are her thoughts, her vibrations, her senses, her feelings. All of these you become aware and can attune to her and find your patterns within her embrace. And the collaboration between the human species and the earth becomes fundamental to your existence. This is the pathway that is emerging, that you have no sense of, which cannot be elaborated more fully until you reach that point of understanding of immersion into the new state of being. It is as you were within the chaos before entering this field. In the unknowing, the effervescent glow of opportunity beckons you onward, nearer to earth. Always nearer to earth. Yeah, right? I told you it's really cool. It's a really cool message, right? Oh my gosh, you guys. Yeah, I thought this was so cool and so interesting and so clear, right? And I love how they say, like, basically we can understand this in terms of, like, we can start to talk about it and have a feeling about it, and we can find some pieces of it that we can relate to, but there's ways about this that we just cannot understand until we're in it, right? Sort of like, imagine, like, before we came, like they're talking about, I think in the beginning, they're talking about before humanity came to the earth, when like, imagine the universe is just being created and it's just a big broiling ball of chaos. But even just before we are born in each of our incarnations, you know, we think we know what it's going to be like to be behind the veil, but we forget. We get here and it's like, oh my gosh, you know, what is this separation? What is this, you know, craziness of being isolated behind the veil? And we can't, even though we've lived it before in our past lives, once we're on the other side, you forget it. And we cannot imagine. We think we know until we get here. And then we really know. And so I think this is going to be like that we can have a sense of this, but hopefully it's a really beautiful thing, not like the veil, but it's a really beautiful thing that we might think we have a sense of it, but we can't really understand it until we get there. Yeah. You're saying, OMG, right? So beautiful. Yes, I think so too. You're saying the soul, or the whole self rising, beautiful to me, the risen soul. Yeah, exactly. The whole self rising. So I think it is the risen soul. So I think this is really about not only our individual progress in terms of our own individual ascension, but the real thing we're trying to go for here is the ascension of all of us, of everyone, of humanity as a singularity, as one sentient being. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's go through and look at it paragraph by paragraph and talk about it. And by that, by the way, about the being one sentient being, they're careful in there to specify that doesn't mean that we lose our personality. We don't lose who we are individually. We just have access to one another in a way that allows us that greater knowing, that being part of that collective, right? It's literally where we can act as one. Yeah, which is kind of amazing. All right, so they go, first paragraph, they say, we are now supplying a picture in your mind of how things are forming, of where you are conforming to, the now treasured aspects of your coming to align. We wish to inspire yourselves. So that's really what this message is about, is they're just trying to give us a picture, an inspiration to help lift us. And it helps for us to know where we're headed. And it's sort of like, yeah, it's keeping the faith, but it's also getting us aligned with that new reality, with this new destination that we're heading towards. So as we start to kind of wrap our heads around it, I think it helps to pull us in that direction. Yeah. All right. And they're so trying to inspire us to open the veil a bit, not much, enough to suffice to tell you where you are, to let you feel the divide yet to be overcome. So just enough. And they wouldn't want to remove the whole veil anyways, because the veil is still very helpful to us. It's very purposeful at the moment as we're trying to go through these last stages of healing that we are all experiencing. Next paragraph, they say, you are inspired within the confines of an understanding that is formed by breathing within these times surrounding. So they're taking, so right now they're giving us an inspiration, but they're acknowledging that we are within a confined situation, this veil that we're behind in our limited understanding. So they're trying to inspire us from within the experience, and it just has to be, it's like I always joke that they're trying to talk to us, and they can only use like one bucket of refrigerator magnets, right? Like they just have a limited set of words they can use to express these massive concepts, because that's the equivalent of our consciousness. Our consciousness has like this many words in it. And they're used to like gazillions of, ways of expression. And they just have to boil it down to this little tiny, and that's all we can get. That's all we have access to when we're here behind the veil. So, So they're saying they're inspiring us from within the confines of an understanding that is basically based on now. And they say, you sense yourselves opening now and rising. So we are aware that we are changing, right? There is within these times a bridging that beckons you on. And the angels have talked about that they have been providing this bridging, helping us. And they are basically there. They talk about how they are leading the way, trying to draw us forward. And lifting yourselves, with a bridging, beckoning you on, lifting yourselves to what is known to us, a heavenly imposed surface. So this heavenly imposed surface, they're acknowledging that they are guiding us, heavenly imposed. So this process of moving onward, moving forward, and the way that they are guiding us, that they are acknowledging that they've taken a heavier hand in this process, that we as individuals, as we're down here, we may not be consciously aware, and especially like we may be consciously aware, but humanity may not be consciously aware. Like everybody out there may not be aware that we are all headed in this direction, that this is happening to us and for us and with us, right? But it's happening. And so it's when they say that this is imposed in many ways. And yes, we're all aware of it at the conscious level. Like before we got here, we were all aware of what's going on. But once we get here, it's not like every single person is like, yeah, I'm super down with the ascension. There's a lot of people that are like, I just want to stop all these crazy earthquakes and tornadoes, So, and that's a whole nother subject, which is, I know, really disturbing right now in terms of the number of really chaotic and crazy things happening in the world right now. So my heart goes out to the people in Turkey for sure. All right. So they go on to say a new statement of yourselves, a new weight, a lightness, a sense of yourselves as aligned more fully. So this is what we are trying to move into. All right. Next paragraph. They say, completed in this understanding will be your own homecoming, where you are supplied and endowed with a perfection that is nearer than you know. You hold it within yourselves. So they're acknowledging that this is really a homecoming, coming back to ourselves, back to our center. They keep talking about being in the center, in our own light, aligned with source and the earth, right? This is what we're getting back to. And as we clear out all of our junk, what we're really doing is returning to the truth of who we really are. So it's our homecoming, right? And they say it's nearer than we know, which I love to hear that. You hold it within yourselves that announces now its potency and strength. Next paragraph, they say, we wish you to envision a time before now, before this time when all was chaos and you were inspired. So I see this as like the birth of our universe, right? Like the birth of all of this. When it's chaos, when it's just like broiling gas and who knows what. And we are souls out there, and we're like, okay, we're going to be part of this earth thing that's just becoming. And what's it going to be like? I don't know, but it's going to be cool, which is kind of where we are now with this whole thing, this ascension. I don't know, it's going to be cool, right? There's a certain leap of faith that we have to go through. So they're saying here, that's the time that they're trying to bring us back to. And we may not have a conscious memory of it, but we have the feeling of it. Right? When all was chaos and you were apart from here, before you did arrive, there was a time when you felt this place, this earth, on the horizon and wondered of it and of this time, right? We thought about it and felt the self that it was far off. So in other words, before we got here, we could have a sense of what it was, but we couldn't really know it until we got here, right? That it felt far off. It felt distant. It couldn't be part of our actual experience. The never now. In other words, it was never part of our current understanding, right? The time to arrive that is not yet come. The sense of yourself as inspired, as wanting, as wishing, as leaning toward, but not knowing. So this is the call they keep talking about. This is the longing that they're talking about, where we're inspired, but we're not quite sure where we're going. All right. And in that time, before you came here, you were surveying the circumstances of this place without knowing how it would be and become. You sensed yourself in alignment with this place, but did not know your time. So we really didn't know like when everything would congeal, like when would it become habitable? How would it evolve? When would humanity be habitable for our souls to come in? Like all of that, I think, was like we knew it was coming. We were in alignment with it, but it wasn't super clear how it was all going to unfold, right? You could not fathom the distinction of how this place would be. So, and that's definitely, I can relate to that. Is that how we feel about where we're headed? All right, and then they say, and yet here you are, thriving in your insistence that this is all you ever were, beings tied to this place, beings who harmonize with earth. And I love that they bring that back to our awareness, that once we're in it, we are so in it that it feels like this is the only truth that ever was. It feels inevitable. And I think they're telling us this is how we will feel at every stage of this process, that what now seems impossible will eventually feel like something we take for granted, that we will get to this new stage you're talking about, where we are seeing each other at our deepest level of our souls and having telepathic communication. And it will be like, yeah, whoop-de-doo, that's just what we do. It'll be, and I think that's just like we feel now about being on earth. It's like, yeah, this is just my life, They say, when in fact this newly formed blessing, so in other words, this hasn't been in the grand scheme of eternity, this hasn't been that long that we've been here. This newly formed blessing is but an encounter on a journey that has many tides and breaks, many feelings and knowings, and this is but one of them. In other words, we've had other experiences, right? This thing that we think is the all and the everything is just one in a bucket. This time, this life, this journey, this earth, this realm, this becoming, so all of it, it's just one among many. And right now, we think it's the everything, right? So that's kind of like they're saying, okay, if that's the case, imagine how familiar and how normalized this new way of being will become to us. And so it's, in other words, it's nothing to fear. And what they're really getting at, it's nothing to fear. And nothing to worry about. We don't have to worry that we won't get there. Just like we didn't worry that we wouldn't get here, right? It's like inevitable. Yeah. All right. Next paragraph. We wish now to inspire ourselves to remember that time before coming, to sense where you are now is not much different, to stand at the peak of the horizon and watch it form before yourselves without knowing exactly where you are and where you are headed, but feel the call of what is coming. So I love that, the peak of the horizon. It makes me feel like we're like at the crest of a wave and it's moving forward and we're kind of watching, and it's like circumstances are rising up to meet us, like it's coming and rising and coming towards us and forming literally as we arrive at it. So it's forming in real time all around us, right? And then they say, you sense that you are on a journey to arrive, that it is inevitable, right? Like we were saying, it is calling forward from now and you are moving on to meet it. But there is yet the discovery to be had of what it will be like. And I really think here they're really trying to address our fear and our worry and saying, don't have it. You've been through this. You've had this experience of coming to a new place before. And look how it went last time, like how we are so integrated into our lives here. And it will be just like that. And so not to stress about it, right? All right. Going on, and someone asked, did the audio disappear? I don't think so. Can someone else comment to make sure? It looks like everything is moving fine on my end. So let me know if you're having any issues. All right. Okay, good. Thanks, Teresa. Okay. Next paragraph, they say, we hold you now in this endeavor to inspire. So this is the whole point, is to keep us inspired, to let you feel yourselves as solid as you are. As pleasant as these visions are to hold, remember now who you are on this continent, in this separation at this time, how you are alive. In other words, they're saying stay in the now, that we have this longing and this desire to be moving, and they're acknowledging that and saying, that's great. We want you to be aware of the pull, the bridging that they've been doing, this gradual pull, which is giving us direction. But we are meant to stay in the now, in the present, being super self-aware and not be focused on, not be trying to get to the new place, just letting ourselves ride the wave to get there, right? Feel the longing, feel the pull, but stay in the present. Even sensing that sense of longing in the present moment. Senses as your present state of being is one of longing to be there, right? So, and they've talked about longing in the past as when longing is mixed up with expectations, then we get in trouble. Expectations are the things that lock us into old patterns of behavior and to old trajectories that we don't want. So this is just a longing that we can't identify. And it is that feeling the call of moving forward towards this ascension. And so this is different from that longing that's attached to expectations of like longing for something that a different life or a different car, different house, a different whatever it is, right? That's the stuff we need to let go of. We need to let go of anything that's tied to old expectations. All right. And then they're saying, where am I? Okay, okay, how you are alive, the sense of heartbeat, the endeavor to breathe, to be, so be really present in the body, in search of greater harmony, but always within what and who you are. So this is how we're approaching this, is super embodied. And then they say, here's the call, this is what we're hearing, and as you stretch farther, and this stretching is something that's happening to us almost like we're being pulled from one dimension to another. Like imagine yourself bridging, like going between two dimensions, and you're like you become stretched out for a little while, and that's they're literally calling it stretching. This is what we're going through as we're transitioning to this new state of awareness. As you stretch farther, this longing as you know it, which is the call, creates the divide between where you are and where you're going. So this is what they're, by telling us about this, they're trying to make that divide come into relief so that we can actually sense and be aware of it. Like this is what's right in front of us. And they're saying the sense of what you are disperses. The sense of knowing your own self individuated becomes lessened. You are stretched. And so it's going to be almost as if, so for those of you who have done a lot of healing, you know how when you bring up an emotion that you are trying to clear, and in the beginning it's super powerful. Say that you're bringing up grief or whatever it is, and in the beginning it feels like it's almost fearful, like it's going to take over your body, and then you release and allow it, and it does. It takes over the body, and it fills you up, and it fills your whole field up, and you'll be in it, the ugly cry, the whole thing. And then after, within literally 90 seconds, it starts to become where all of a sudden you can't find it anymore. Like you lose your grasp on it. It slips between your fingers, and then pretty soon you can't find it anymore, and it's just gone. And that's how I think of this, what they're talking about, that our sense of being individuated, right? The sense of what you are disperses. The sense of this attachment to our current state of consciousness, our current awareness of aloneness starts to it's almost like we can't hold on to it anymore. And we start to become more and more aware of this connection to each other, right? And that starts to take over a greater and greater portion of our awareness. So it sounds like, from what they're saying, that they're saying the sense of knowing your own self individuated becomes lessened. So it's like a stretching, a super gradual transition as we move away from always thinking from our own perspective to starting to incorporate more and more of this connection to everyone. And then they say, you are stretched, right? So I love that visual too, because I think it helps us to understand how it's going to feel, that it's almost like we're embodying both states at the same time, and then gradually we move into the new state. And then they say, from this vantage point where you are seeing it, from where we are now, we can only just describe the sensation of it. But in this new way of being, your sentiment towards one another changes. The feelings you have align towards the greater dignity of humanity. So think about this, is that this is, as we are able increasingly to step outside of ourselves and our own personal concerns and step into, right, the greater dignity of humanity, of caring about everyone and all of us, right? And that is the gradual movement that we are all going towards, right? And they say we would speak farther, knowing beyond this knowing into the next surmising of humanity. So this is saying, okay, great. So that's what's on the horizon. This is what's coming, and this is what's going to bring us to hopefully world peace, this peace that we've just been talking about. But then what's going to happen 300 years from now, 200 years from now, like 500 years from now? I don't know how long. But this is the next surmising. So this is the next paragraph. This is what they're talking about here. They say, of understanding what you are as a collective. So this is when we've been able to fully achieve this collective awareness. To feel the herald of the heavens tumble down to you. To let it draw forward your understanding in formation with one another's knowledge. So this is that idea that we can tap into this communal knowing and really know everything all at once without having to think or study or learn. How about that? Yeah. It just was like you want to know something and boom, you just know it because we're tapping into each other's knowledge. This separation, thus found so easily where you are, is dispersed and pleasantly discarded. So they're saying this is not going to be a painful process of letting go of this sense of separation. It's going to be pleasantly discarded and you become one earthly sentient. And sentient, the word sentient means to be able to perceive things. So it's like a consciousness. It's like that's to be one earthly sentience, one earthly consciousness where we have access to the oneness of all of us. And that is an amazing thing to think that if knowledge, the thing that we work so hard to cultivate, that is such a focus for us right now, school, right? Setting how we push our kids and then we have to go to, all the different universities and there's so much work that goes into preserving knowledge, writing books and all the stuff that we do. Imagine if everything that humanity ever knew was available just by thinking about it. And boom, it would be in your head. And then what would be valuable would be not the knowledge, but the questions, right? It would be about inquiry. It would be about how do we guide ourselves to discover the knowledge that's there waiting to be held. Because what we wouldn't want to do is lose it simply because we don't know the pathway to find it. So that, and then the understanding of one another. Yeah. And then learning to create, to work with the earth, to manifest, to create. So it would completely change the focus of our entire species, right? It's no longer like we are been in the world, in the era, like we went through, if you look at the different developments of like the Iron Age and all that kind of stuff. And then we went through the age of what do you call it? But we've been in the information age. And this is like moving out of the information age into the next age, which to me would be the age of inquiry is how when I think about it, that's what makes sense to me is that what would be valuable, what would be necessary is finding our way, not forgetting the knowledge that we have simply because it's all there all the time and we have to remember to ask the questions. Wow, right? So interesting. Super, super interesting. Yeah, and you're saying, the feeling, yeah. And you're saying, how I picture it, you look at everyone with the unconditional love that you feel for your children. I think that is a beautiful way of expressing it. Yeah, totally. And Radha is saying, that's like being on the other side. I think it is, right? The way of knowing, like when you're on the other side, you're right, is that you have that instant access to all knowledge. And you're saying, we are the children of the light. Yes, we are. Yeah. All right. Okay, so then they say you become one earthly sentient, one earth organism. Like that's the part that's kind of the mind blower of this. And what does that mean in terms of our evolution and how our priorities change as a species? I think so interesting. All right, next paragraph, they say a sense of who you are embodied now in flesh and blood. So in other words, we still have our bodies, we still have the vehicle that we are in, so in a sense of who we are in terms of our personality. So that exists still, but containing all of you inside. So there is the sense that we can all inhabit all these different, this is your primary space, but you also share what it is to be this person with everyone. And so that's what's different. They say the sense of this compatriotship, and to be a compatriot is a fellow citizen from the same country. So, which is interesting because later they talk about the countries, but fellow citizens. So it's that idea of everyone united, Yeah, the sense of this compatriotship, of one another at your side. And I like that because I think that helps us to understand that it is a unification. Like, yes, it is a sharing at a deep level, but in terms of our conceptual understanding, the best is probably to feel that everyone is at your side, because you still get to hold the body. You still get to be in here. It's still your space. It's just that you have everyone with you. Yeah. And they're careful here to say, one another at your side, the sense of this always, not as an injury, not at all. They're saying this is not going to be something that is negative for us in any way. They're saying not of the sense of loss of separation, but a loss of the potent forces of your own distinguishing loneliness. So that is the thing that's gone, is that sense of being behind the veil and being separated from everyone and being lonely, never really fully being seen through one another's projections, which is inherently distancing, right? When no one actually encounters you as you really are, because they're looking at you through their own veil of wounding. And that does not exist when we move to this new state of consciousness, which is super, super cool. Yeah. All right. From this collective state of awareness, all things rise to the complexity of one mind and fall back down again for equal sharing and knowing. So in other words, all of us are out there experiencing and feeling and learning, and that all rises up to the complexity of the collective and then is shared back down to everyone so that we all have access to it. Yeah, for equal sharing and knowing. All right, next paragraph. There has not, and imagine like that there's no secrets in that world. All the thing we have now about like conspiracies or secrets, or what is what are people sharing or not sharing, or what is the truth, right? Well, if we have everything is shared, there's no secrets. There's no more haves and have-nots, because everybody is accessing the same pool of knowledge. So it would completely shift the hierarchy, the idea of hierarchy on our planet, right? It would change everything. Yeah, it really, if you really explore this, it's deep in terms of how these circumstances would shift and change us. Yeah, huge, in really, really positive ways. All right. There has not in the state of the, where is this? Yeah. There has not in the state on the horizon been the forces to pull your tide farther. There has not been the cascade of events that would draw you there. This is yet coming. So they say these instigations have already begun, but there is yet time unfolding, and the drawing onward has yet to come. So they've told us a lot about yes, we've been going through a lot already, like no doubt. And the word unprecedented is thrown around like everything is unprecedented these days. And it's the pace of chaos, the number of crazy things. Like any one of the crazy things that have been happening would have been in the news for weeks. Like back in the days of like Hurricane Katrina, when that happened, that was like all anybody talked about. That was in the news for weeks and weeks and weeks. And nowadays, let's just see, like the earthquake in Turkey, how long will that be in everyone's awareness before it's replaced with the next thing, And I hate to say that, but it has been like that. So it's a cascade of events, but they're saying that we're not in it yet. Like there's more to come, and we know that. We know that that's coming, but it is a drawing onward. The point of it is, yes, the big point of it is the earth herself going through her own evolution, but it is also serving to help us to tear down our old institutions, to tear down our old expectations, and to free us so that we can see this call and hear the call and feel it and move toward it. Yeah. All right. And you're saying, so no more karma, no more rich, poor, good or bad. Yet no more karma. That is, they've said that, and they've definitely repeated that many times, no more karma. That we are right now going through the process of getting as much squeezing, as much healing for ourselves as we can possibly get while we still have this karmic construct, because it is a phenomenal school for healing. So we want to take full advantage of it while we can, because it will not be available forever. And we will move to a state where we are no longer dealing with karma, where we are on more of a dharmic path and our shift and our focus changes. But that doesn't mean that we're going to be perfect. We're still going to have some of our baggage. So the more that we can clear it now, it's just that we won't be living it like we're living it now. So this is the time to clear. This is the time to heal. And then in time forward, things change and we evolve and we have a different focus. Yeah. Yeah, and you're saying spot on and awesome. Glad you're driving with the message. You're saying it is because of the sheer number of us awakening, it makes the chaos before the alignment. You know, Teresa, I think there really is something to that the shifting in our own consciousness could be creating some of the chaos. Yeah, I think that's an interesting thought. And you're saying, I am ready. Me too. I know. I think I am, right? I could be fooling myself, but I feel pretty ready. All right. So here we go. This next part here. Okay, so next paragraph. For the collective of one mind, how is it felt? How is it molded? So here they're going to be trying to answer our questions of how do we get there? How does this all happen? And they say, and we say for yourselves to exist in the space of awareness that is shared becomes a gradual acceptance that all knowledge is available to the self. So I love that everything always comes back to what will we allow. It always comes back to, at the end of the day, it is always us standing in our way. So it is a gradual acceptance of the fact that all knowledge is available to us. So we gradually let it in, is what they're saying. And then they say that all the self has experienced, the knowing of what you are informs the collective, that you are seen deeply, that you are known and felt. You are understanding one another in truth, for their purpose, for their originality, for their union with the whole. And think about this. This is interesting that we're saying that the self, that we are seen deeply. And while we are dealing with wounding around being loved, right, around self-love, and around that, how many of us have wounds around being seen, right? And so what part of us is going to be in resistance to this new state of being if we feel like, if we have fear of being seen, or if we're resistant to being seen, right? And if being seen is what's on offer, and we know that these experiences are already available to us if we let them in. So moving to this is a process of letting go of our old issues, our old ways of being, our karma, and moving into this new state of awareness. It's acceptance of it. We have to learn to accept it. But I can see how, one of the core wounds of humanity, right, is that feeling, right, of feeling a lack of self-love. And so if what we're moving to is a sense of being seen deeply, it sounds amazing, but are we ready to let it in? And that's the part that we need to work on right now. And I get the sense that we will get to a place where we will get there, whether or not we have cleared those blocks. But the faster we clear them, the faster we arrive. Yeah. And Rebecca's saying, you are ready, Anne. Thanks, Rebecca. I appreciate it. We are feeling what is happening, but not all are accepting their awareness. Yeah, and that is super true. That is super, super true. Because it's a shift, and there's a lot of fear around letting go of our individuality, letting go of our ego and all of that. There's definite intense fear around that. Fear of being seen and heard is real, 100%. How soon will this happen, Rhoda is saying. Rada is saying, they don't give us a timing. They're saying that there's stuff happening now. We can see it all around us. So we are in the middle of it right now. If you look at it astrologically, it's like the time period we're in is kind of, there's a lot of parallels with that, like the 1920s and 30s. So there's still a lot of chaos to go through. And it's really this this stuff they're talking about in terms of the first piece, the part where they're talking about having the full sense of one another and all of that, and the shift where we prioritize the benefit of humanity, I believe we will experience that in our lifetimes. This other stuff where we get to this, like where we have access to all the knowledge and all that, I don't think that's going to happen soon. I think that's like, hundreds of years. So, but we definitely get to be here for the beginnings of it and for the good stuff. Like they're talking like world peace in the next, several decades, or who knows, could be 10 years. I don't know. But there's we will be going through the beginnings of this massive transformation and experiencing the beginnings of it in our lifetimes, which is exciting, very exciting. Yeah. And then it's process. They said, right, it's a gradual process of acceptance. So we can do this at any point. We're stretching ourselves and moving into this area, these new ways of being. All right. That to exist in the space of awareness that is shared becomes a gradual acceptance that all knowledge is available to the self, that all the self has experienced, the knowing of what you are informs the collective, that you are seen deeply, you are known and felt. You are understanding one another in truth for their purpose, for their originality, for their union with the whole. All right, next paragraph. You see yourselves, and I love this, you see yourselves, this becomes our identity in the future, in this 200, 300 year time frame, how we shift our definition of what humanity is, which right now, when we talk about what is humanity, we don't say nice things. We talk about greed and we talk about, right, we don't say nice things. This is what we're going to say in the future. You see yourselves as cooperative, collaborative, communicative, as sharing space of equality and equal cherishing of one another's purpose and potential. Couldn't be more different, right? If that becomes like when we think of what humans are, right now, when we think of what humans are, it's complicated, right? We have some beautiful humans. They can be incredibly loving and incredibly awful, right? And not in the future. Like in the future, this is really different, right? And the methods by which you communicate are different. There is within yourselves the knowledge of how thoughts are forming and the ability to communicate without words. So telepathy, for sure. They're reinforcing that. They've said it before, that we will have a deeper sense of communication without words, which opens up, what can be shared, because words are so limited. All right, next paragraph. There is within the self a rising of knowingness as you approach one another. So in other words, when you, in the future, in this future time, when you see another person and you approach them, what happens? This is how they're going to describe it. They say a sense of what you are unfolding before you. So it's a sense of sharing, opening your heart, letting yourself, who you are, unfold, right? And then, and of they to whom you are speaking, this other person, a reception of this knowledge, so that you feel seen, you feel heard, you feel understood. So they receive you, and you perceive that they are receiving you, right? Then, and if you receiving what they are, full and intact, so then they do the same thing. They share themselves, and you receive it, and you feel it in your body, right? And then a collaborative gesture of knowing, a sensing, a feeling in the body. So this is like it's, and then they go on to say, a having been, as though you are remembering what you've always known. I love this, that it's not like you have to learn it. It is like a coming back, like a memory. And think about how a memory comes back. Imagine right now that you are smelling something from your childhood. And remember how when you have one of those smells come back, how it comes in layered with so much meaning. It has multiple memories attached to it. A single smell, right, can bring you back to a time in your life and you remember, boom, you remember everything from that time, right? And that one single smell is laden with all this information. And this is what it's going to be like, that we get this knowing of them. And then it becomes a remembering what you've always known, a sense of this rising to the awareness coming from somewhere in your depths that you cannot identify. So it's just like I said, that smell from your childhood. And you can't figure it, like it's not really coming from a specific place. It's not like you had to try to find it. It just kind of comes up and it's like you always knew it. And it's just, and all of a sudden you have this incredibly deep, rich experience of that time and place that you were, but in this case, it's going to be a deep, rich experience of this soul, right? A resurfacing. So it's like it's coming up, resurfacing, like you've already known. They said, as though this was someone from your past, though you may not have known them. So that's going to be the feeling. It's going to be like an instant BFF, like someone that you've just always known and understood and felt, and you know all their trials and tribulations, because we're not going to be perfect, but we will be understood in our imperfection. Right? And so it's okay. It's okay that we're not perfect. Yeah. All right. So then going on, they say, and this takes you far, this connection. The sense of what they are, the knowingness provides between you a complexity of endeavor in which the collaboration of your species, the collective, is endowed with more potential. And I think this is super exciting, right? This idea that this new way of being in the future, it gives us a complexity of endeavor in which the collaboration of your species, the collective, is endowed with more potential. So there's just much more that becomes possible. And that makes a ton of sense because right now we waste so much energy just fighting with each other, right? Just defining what is mine and what is not mine, right? Accounting, taxes, right? Taxes, like all of it. So we invest so much energy in divvying up and claiming and separating all of that, and fighting. Oh my gosh, so much energy in the world spent on fighting. And I know that whenever we're going through a major healing, that one of the things that we look to do is to free up energy in the system. Whenever we're trying to attain a new level of consciousness, we have to free up energy in the system. And that comes from a lot of different places. It comes from releasing expectations, releasing anything that holds us, that pulls us, that weighs on our body. We release that, it frees up energy so we can ascend. We can move up a little higher. But for humanity as a collective, right? If we let go, if we come to this new state of appreciation of one another, and we have equality and all these things, and we let go of all these efforts that we are making to try to hoard and keep and separate and draw our boundaries and all the things we do, that's a ton of wasted energy. And if that's all gone, like, wow, right? That will free up so much energy. So it will be amazing to see what humanity can do without that waste, right? Without all that waste. All right, the greater divide between the whole, the astounding measures now taken to create identity and separateness are dissolved. That's exactly what I was just talking about. The astounding measures now taken to create identity and separateness are dissolved. Wow, yeah. Okay, so that's exactly what we're just saying. These nations, which, and now I understand that sentence a whole lot better. These nations which you hold dear and important become less so. They do not rise. They find their passage ineffectual and become an old instantiation of control to which you will no longer abide. So in other words, the whole way that we are carved up into different countries and all of this, it doesn't fit anymore. We don't need it. It doesn't need it. And this is a long time in the future, right? But we won't need it. Going on, next paragraph. You find in the self a way and method of finding your place in the world. A way of being of service to one another, a sense of yourselves as part of a collective energy that works upon the earth to grow her potential. And this whole section I love, because this is what we're heading to. Like, why are we here? Like, what are we doing? Once we get past ourselves and all the desire to, the fear that we're bound in that makes us focus constantly on separation and dividing and keeping and fighting and all that kind of stuff, then why are we really here? And they're saying what we're here for is that our collective energy is working upon the earth to grow her potential. So the earth, she will rise and fall and become more. And you, collectively, us humans, are her thoughts, her vibrations, her senses, her feelings. So we are like the neurons on the face of the earth, right? The earth being a being, our bodies, our physical bodies are like the neurons on the face of the earth. And we, our souls, come down to inhabit those neurons, to experience what it is to be alive. So our souls are not of the earth, but the bodies we inhabit are. Yeah. And then they go on to say, all of these you become aware and can attune to her and find your patterns within her embrace. And the collaboration between the human species and the earth becomes fundamental to your existence. Wow, you guys. Like, wow, wow, wow. And that we have the understanding of that, of what our role is, right? This is the pathway that is emerging, that you have no sense of, which cannot be elaborated more fully until you reach that point of understanding of immersion into the new state of being. So this gets back to what they were saying about that we can't really understand it. It's just like we couldn't understand what it was like to be on earth until we slipped behind the veil and we felt it. And then we knew, right? And they're saying this is going to be like that we can't really understand it until we're in it. But they're saying it is as you were within the chaos before entering this field. In the unknowing, the effervescent glow of opportunity beckons you onward, nearer to earth, always nearer to earth. So in that time before coming the last time, we were trying to move towards earth. And in this time, again, we are trying to move nearer to earth, trying to get out of our way so we're not focused on fighting with each other. Instead, we're focused on collaborating and communing with one another and understanding our role is to be helping the earth, right? That's going to be our job. So nearer, again, in this next movement, we are moving nearer to the earth. Yeah. Super cool message. Right? Super cool. You're saying beautiful, Anne. Thank you. You're so welcome. Yeah. Yep. It's really, I have been loving how they have been guiding us through what we are going through, how they've been sharing with us their perspective and their understanding and helping us to have a much better sense of what we are experiencing and what we will experience, So incredibly helpful. So, and you say this definitely needs re-listening to. Yeah, for sure. And I will pull out some important bits of this and share those, like I was talking about, on Instagram and Pinterest. So you guys can go and see those or share them in the Facebook group. So you will have that and can easily pull up and hopefully plug back into pieces of this message so that it stays more accessible to us. So, all right, you guys, thank you so much for joining me. You are awesome. I really appreciate this time and you guys sharing your energy during this, because we always come to a deeper sense of understanding about this when we do it as a group. So I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. And I will see you guys next Friday live. Bye, you guys.